Hello and welcome to CATSweek. I'm Annalise Poorman. On February 16th at the Bloomington City Council meeting, Mayor John Hamilton spoke in favor of incentivizing Catalent to invest in the Bloomington community.
We work hard to cultivate growth among our employers to offer new jobs. That's a long game in economic development, and this is part of that. Evidenced by it's been kind of 25 years of redevelopment at the Thompson site when we had a major loss of employer there. We are definitely seeing wage growth in Bloomington, also cost of living growth, and we really want to continue to see growth in wages, which this is an excellent part of. As you know, we are competing for this investment from other options that Catalent also has. And the proposed tax abatement in front of you tonight is a strong demonstration of our commitment as a community to continuing to facilitate real career opportunities for our people.
Director of Economic and Sustainable Development, Alex Crowley, recommended the council approve a tax abatement which would encourage Catalent to choose its Bloomington facility over other sites.
Before I go into the details, I wanted to start with some preliminary thoughts, echoing Mayor Hamilton's earlier points. First, allow me to underscore how extraordinary the scale of this investment and job growth would be, and how extremely rare this is for a community our size. The capital investment would nearly double the investment on the site since Thompson announced its departure 25 years ago. Second, we have to recognize that Bloomington is competing for this growth. Catalent has not made a decision yet about it, and as they will detail later, they have other US facilities with similarly strong biologics capabilities. We stack up well, but this investment is very much in play right now. Third, we have designed this incentive to minimize our risk. If Catalent doesn't invest or grow jobs at these commitment levels, we are not out of pocket, and they don't realize any value in the incentive. Furthermore, there's a statutory annual reporting requirement that will provide us an opportunity to evaluate Catalent's performance. And finally, and perhaps most important, while an abatement is provided to a corporation, the benefits of their investment and our investment are, in the end, realized by individual workers, people, who are given the opportunity to land jobs and careers both in the company and in the community through overall economic multiplication.
Councilmember Kate Rosenbarger brought up concerns about the housing crisis and increasing population density.
I'm just looking for discussion around the housing crisis because it's just a lot of folks, right, needing homes, not being able to pay, and just kind of echoing some concerns from the UDO talks back in the day. What about our road infrastructure? What about parking, traffic, plumbing? It's just a lot, I guess. So this is a kind of an in general question, but I just feel like it is a concern that people here already don't have places to live. And is there any discussion about looking at the UDO again if we're bringing in another 1,000 people and actually finding places to put them that's not on the outskirts or in apartments?
Crowley said that the Urban Development Organization is looking into the housing situation and rethinking some aspects of the UDO to encourage more affordable housing in the future. Councilmember Steve Olin asked why Bloomington is being asked to be the sole provider in the tax abatement when surrounding counties would benefit from the additional income tax. Crowley said that the company is located within Bloomington's jurisdiction, and he did not think it would be feasible.
I mean, I get that, Mr. Crowley, but you're still asking us to forego $1.5 million a year in taxes that will pay for the very resources that Catalent needs for its employees to get to them. The roads in the city, the infrastructure that we're providing. I mean, there's a reason for the taxes. They're put to this kind of use. And so the fact that people move around doesn't really help me as a Bloomington City Council member worried about Bloomington's budget, that we're giving away half of this money is going directly into the coffers of other jurisdictions.
Councilmember Sue Scambaluri explained that she grew up in Gary, Indiana, and saw the effects of the steel mills shutting down. However, she said that Catalent has, quote, consistently underpromised and overdelivered in what they have done, unquote. Councilmember Jim Sims said that he would support the abatement. He was in favor of dealing with the issue of growth rather than the issue of decline.
There's been a comment that we would forego tax revenue by giving the abatement. And I know that's kind of close to it, but I don't think that's the true cost. And the way I think about it is, what are you losing if we don't make the investment? So I tend to think about it that way a little bit more. And I said there was two thoughts. Here's the last one. And Mr. Crowley, I'm gonna give you credit for this because it really hit home. We would rather have the challenge of dealing with growth instead of the problem of dealing with decline.
The City Council will have a public hearing on the tax abatement at the next meeting on March 2nd, and will then have a final vote following the hearing. At the Monroe County Public Library Board of Trustees meeting on February 16th, Director Marilyn Wood gave an update on the library's services in light of how the pandemic has affected the use of the library.
So the visits, this is the physical stuff, physical visits. This is where we see the greatest change. So our number of visits to the library in January of 2020 was 67,448 people. In 2022, it was 36,415 people. Our programs in 2020, we offered 84 programs. We actually offered 98 in 2022, so we've gone up in that area. We're beginning to, and in the director's report, you'll see there's several little anecdotes that people have told us how much they appreciated that programming has returned and what it's meant for, particularly for their children and for their teens. The attendance of our programs in 2020 was 1,782, and it was 1,498 in 2022. Here's another big one that was physically, because they weren't physically here. Our public computer usage in 2020, there were 11,883 sessions, and this year there were 5,199. Physical circulation of books, this is both circ and renewals, but in 2020, it was 141,908, and this year it was 119,282, so it's not that far off, particularly when you consider that's renewals as well. Our circulation of electronic resources was 68,457, and this year it was 85,000, so that one went up. And here's the number that I really appreciate, and this is how many different people made use of our library. So this is the unique use. And this is only measuring circulation activity, because that's the number we can count. But in 2020, it was 10,428 people. And in 2022, it was 8,721. So we're still reaching a lot of people in our community.
Wood also shared she will be retiring from her position as director.
The second thing that I wanted to just publicly announce tonight is my retirement. So after 10 years here at the library, I've had the pleasure and the privilege to be here for 10 years. I am planning to retire this spring in May. Thank you for all of the support and advocacy that you have provided over the years. It's been fantastic.
Finance Manager Gary Letelier shared a resolution to establish a depreciation policy for the library's capital assets.
It's a resolution to establish a capital asset depreciation method. The State Board of Accounts has changed the rules on reporting capital assets. So in order to comply with those changes, we'll start reporting depreciation on MCPL capital assets. This resolution will formalize a reporting change that MCPL had to make in 2019 when the county and some of the larger county government component units had to start reporting depreciation. The library will report depreciation for 2021 on the Gateway Annual Report for the first time when we submitted this spring. Depreciation is a way to recognize the cost of an asset over the course of its useful life.
Letelier explained that for purchases over $5,000, he sends the depreciation schedule to the county. However, smaller purchases don't need to be reported in the capital asset statement. Items such as computers are tracked so that when they become too old, staff know to replace them. Wood added that the tracking of assets is important for the collection of books as well.
One of the reasons why we do those somewhat frequent resolutions when we get rid of surplus material is to keep these things in line so that our assets really reflect what comes and what goes. And one difference that this policy makes on that $5,000 mark, or somewhat different, I don't know how to describe it, is that our collection of books is included, but it's not included on a book-by-book basis. It's included on a this is what you started with, this is how much you added, and this is how much you deleted over the course of the year.
The board unanimously voted to approve the policy. The next Board of Trustees meeting will be held on March 23rd. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
For hurting families in Monroe County.
A contribution to children who are vulnerable and in need of an advocate.
A staff that goes above and beyond to support and advocate for children in need of services.
The web of remarkable people who are dealing with difficult situations.
So many young people that are in need of help and trying to find a stable family, a stable place to live. Without the CASAs to make that happen, many of them would be unable to find a good home.
I love being that voice for the child who can't speak for themselves in court.
It takes me out of my comfort zone. And it also helps others.
CASA means supporting our community.
Being a CASA is making sure that your village is healthy and whole, and that the children in your village will someday be able to help the village as well.
A child who doesn't have a voice, maybe in their family situation or a school situation, now has a voice that can advocate for them.
I really enjoy working with children that are going through difficult times and letting them know that I care about their future.
We are privileged with our charge of representing the best interest of children. And so therefore we can advocate for exactly what they need without restriction, focusing on their best interest.
I want to repair the world one child at a time.
Welcome back to CATSweek. On February 16th at the Monroe County Board of Commissioners meeting, Assessor Judith Sharp asked the commissioners to approve funding for service agreements with Midwest Presort, which she hires to handle the mailing of personal property assessment forms. Sharp shared that Indiana changed the business personal property tax requirement to be $80,000 rather than $40,000.
This year, the state is actually raising the bottom line from $40,000 to $80,000. So if you have business personal property reporting, and remember this is self-reporting, they report it, it's a self-assessment, under $80,000, you will not have any taxes due at all, but you still have to file the form with us, which is very kind of silly, I think, but no one listens to the assessors. I understand the reason for it, but at $80,000, it's going to wipe out half of our filings anyway. But unfortunately, if they do not file, they get penalized. $25 plus interest and everything else.
Sharp explained that although this is convenient for businesses, the burden of property taxes then falls upon the shoulders of the homeowners. Commissioner Penny Githens asked Sharp what they can do to push back against the shift away from taxing businesses. Sharp responded,
"The property tax system is the number one issue with legislators because it resonates with every single homeowner and business owner in the state of Indiana. And all it takes is one irate property tax owner to get to the legislator And that legislator just like, oh my God, I'll lose a vote if I don't get a bill. No matter how bad it is, let's throw it out there, and they stick. And I'm being very honest with you, and I know I'm on the whole. Of course, I stand up there to the legislators and say the same thing. Too much politics into what we all do, and this job doesn't. My job should not be political. We have rules and regulations. We have to get the job done. People don't like it, but as long as I can prove to everybody that we're fair and equitable, and even if you disagree with that, there's mechanisms out there. But just because you don't like your assessment and you know somebody in the legislature, and there's horrible bills that we fight down every single year. We're still fighting on the dark box. We won a little bit. It's still out there. How long has that been? 20 years? And it's always being brought up. I don't know. It gets a little frustrating, but we keep doing it. And you had a good question. We fight back. We're the people that know what we're doing. We know who to talk to.
The next County Commissioners meeting will be held on February 23rd. At the Ellettsville Town Council meeting on February 14th, council members discussed the future of sick leave and paid time off payout for staff. Councilmember Scott Oldham suggested that the council look into alternatives to unused pay time off. Clerk Treasurer Sandra Hash replied to his questions.
In Ellettsville, the PTO and the sick time is separated, is it not?
It is.
We don't currently pay out sick time at the end of someone's career, do we?
No, we do not. We can't afford to.
Well, maybe yes, maybe no. So the question becomes, you pay it out a little overtime or you pay it out a lot at the end, because you have some employees that leave with a lot of sick time, meaning they have not taken off at all sick in their last however many years. But what we traditionally see is, employees who know they're going to retire at a certain date start bleeding off sick time, as they should, but that results in overtime costs to us generally because we're having to backfill for those. And again, I can't put a number to it because Sandy's going to not be unhappy. She's just being realistic. We maybe need to look at something where we're buying out sick time that's left rather than just, allowing people to run up and then they just lose it, because we're paying for it one way or the other.
Hash responded, saying that the town of Ellettsville does not have enough funding saved up to pay out staff members for their unused paid time off.
Remember, we do unlimited sick time. So there's people who get to retirement and have 3,000 or 4,000 hours of sick time. So it would definitely take some calculation. I've always tried to tell employees it's like a guaranteed insurance policy, because we've had a lot of people, not a lot, but several, who have had to have extended absences. And because of our sick leave policy, they didn't miss a single paycheck. And that's a wonderful thing. In the private industry, it's unheard of. So I understand what you're saying, and I'm not saying it's not possible, but we definitely need to have some help figuring it out and realize the liability that we're setting up. Because when I pay out someone for, 596 hours, 594, that is a couple of months' pay. And that means that department can't replace that employee. We don't have that bank of money saved up. So the employee can't be replaced until we work through that payout period, which can take 3 months sometimes.
Oldham said that he was not trying to bankrupt the town, but that they should consider adjustments moving forward. The council also heard from Utilities Operation Manager Mike Farmer about increasing the sewer hook-on fee from $1,500 to $2,500.
Just a little history. When we did a rate study back in 2017, 2018, I believe, and even before that, our rate consultants We talked about raising them back then, and we considered $2,500, which we all kind of come to an agreement on, but it was even suggested that they be even more, considering the cost of capacity and keeping capacity in the plant, and making sure our future is insured with monies to rehabilitate or replace the wastewater plant. Currently, we're in fairly decent shape as far as capacity goes, but as we grow and we grow faster than we have, we need to plan for the future. This fee only is attributed to new starts on building. It does not affect our existing customers at all, and it's pretty much in line, if not lower than most of or a lot of different towns and cities in the state of Indiana.
The board will vote on the fee increase at the next Ellettsville Town Council meeting, which will be held on February 28th. And we'll have more CATSweek after this message.
I'm at risk of thinking there's just no point in trying.
I'm at risk of looking in the mirror and hating what I see.
I'm at risk of being told not to tell.
But with Girls Inc. in my corner,
I will not be another statistic.
I will fight for myself.
With you in my corner, I will win.
Fuel her fire and she will change the world. Girls Inc.
Welcome back to CATSweek. At the Utilities Service Board meeting on February 14th, the board heard from Director of Bloomington Utilities, Vic Kelson, about a memorandum of understanding between the Lake Monroe Water Fund and the City of Bloomington Utilities. Kelson said the MOU is for Bloomington's financial contribution to watershed projects. IU Vice Provost of Communications, Kirk White, asked about who administers the Lake Monroe Water Fund. Kelson replied, saying that the board is composed of many different stakeholders.
The Lake Monroe Water Fund actually is an organization, and it has a board that has representation from all of the counties that are in the Lake Monroe watershed and from a wide variety of interests. So it's got forestry interests, farming interests, environmental groups, business interests, the Chamber of Commerce, the BEDC, Monroe County, Brown County, and Jackson County. And in fact, Jackson County recently participated in the management of the gauge that is on the South Fork of Salt Creek. They've recently taken on the job of being the contract holders for that contract with the USGS. So the idea of this is the purpose of the Water Fund Board is to, and the Water Fund itself, is to raise money for watershed projects. And they're starting to spin up right now. So the purpose of the grant for this year is to help them start their fundraising program, which will be driven by all those other organizations that they're involved with.
The board approved the request unanimously. The board also approved an MOU between Bloomington Utilities and the Parks and Recreation Department to finalize each other's roles at the Miller Showers Park. The next board meeting will be held on February 28th. On February 10th, at the COVID-19 press conference, Health Director Penny Cottle shared that Monroe County is still in the red advisory category, but says that the rate of community spread is expected to steadily decline.
The decline was starting before last week, before our snowstorms, but it is expected to continue. Omicron has shown these steep, fast surges followed by steady declines, which is what's currently being watched. The Indiana surge started in northern part of the state, and that's really where we're seeing the biggest improvements at the moment. Some of those counties are seeing a decrease by 90% since the Omicron peak. Positivity trends do remain high, but are also improving. County positivity rates across the state range from over 30% to under 20, with everybody being over 15, I believe. I don't know of anybody under 15% at the moment. Our current weekly positivity rate stands at 19.72%. Our daily average of cases is also declining. So all good pieces of information, all good indicators, but we know that no single piece of data tells us the full story. So it's also important to look at those hospitalizations, opportunities for treatments, vaccine and testing opportunities, our vaccination rates, and any other available data. Even the water data that you mentioned, the sewer data, is good additional data for us to have.
IU Health President Brian Shockney shared that although the number of hospital patients has been declining, patients are staying longer due to their symptoms.
We're optimistic about this week's COVID-19 inpatient numbers, and we continue to keep a close eye on our census across IU Health South Central region. However, as our numbers of inpatients currently on isolation for COVID go down, we're still seeing a larger volume of patients in this surge, as you can see here, that are requiring a longer length of stay. So patients go off of our isolation list after a certain number of days, but these patients are sicker than our previous surges, and so they are coming out of the hospital and having longer lengths of stay and coming out of the hospital at a longer period of time. So that's continuing to, while we're seeing the numbers start to come down this past week, it's still not reducing the number of beds we need here in our hospitals in the South Central region yet. We are hopeful that that will happen soon.
Shockney said that the hospital is hoping to have room in the near future to continue surgeries that had to be postponed due to the high number of COVID-19 patients.
As many of you know, we have not been able to use this new IU Health Bloomington Hospital to its full capacity since we moved in. And so we are really anxious to get back to that and get out of this COVID surge. Lastly, we are so very appreciative of our patients and their patience in waiting for their procedures to be rescheduled. Some have been rescheduled 3 times. These are difficult times, and our team certainly appreciates the words of kindness and support from those who are coming in and getting and expressing their understanding of getting their surgeries and procedures now.
Indiana University Chief Health Officer Aaron Carroll said that the cases on the IU Bloomington campus are declining with a positivity rate in the single digits. He shared that there is only 1 student in the personal isolation unit. Carroll also shared that IU is offering students $20 in Crimson Cash to incentivize students to get their booster shot.
We're still encouraging vaccination and boostering. In fact, our incentive program for students kicked off today, where if students voluntarily upload their booster information, then they receive $20 in Crimson Cash. So we'll be talking about that more. We'll be pushing that out, trying to get as many students boosted as possible, trying to get everybody boosted if we can, which is certainly going to be the best protection we have against future surges if and when they come.
The next COVID-19 press conference will be held on February 25th. And that is all for CATSweek. Thank you for joining us. For CATS and WFHB, I'm Annalise Poorman.